Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible, so if this is something you'd be interested in, then why not subscribe? Today, with finally branded, at least the branded version, I have combined Predaplants and some branded Albaz engine in here, and to some success I have to say. It has gone pretty well in the ranked queue for me with this one, and yes, it might be a tiny bit more expensive than certain other budget decks, but it's still very cheap in comparison to what else is out there. So let's not talk too much, let's jump into the card by card, and we run one Predaplant, whatever. I'm not going to be pronouncing any Predaplant names, just as much as I haven't done for my actual Predaplant deck profile. So this one, if it's on field and it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, if I'm not mistaken, then, or just being sent to the graveyard basically, so this card can then search one Predap card from your deck to your hand. Very important, because it's a Predap card, isn't even just a monster, so that is very nice. And then it has the whole battle trap effect, which can be somewhat decent from time to time, because you can add this card to your hand with some other card's effect, so you can use it as a battle trap from time to time, and that's not too bad either. We have double Despian Tragedy, a card that is quite important in this specific variant because it does search you the good old Aluber, because Aluber searches you the good stuff, and that is what we want to be doing. Technically can run this card at 3, but I felt a bit bricky from time to time, because obviously in a fusion deck you always want to hit the sweet spot with, do I have enough cards that fusion summon, and do I have enough materials for the fusion summon, and sometimes you have to make certain cuts, so I felt like 2 was fine. If you don't want to be running Ad Libitum, then you can, for example, play triple Despian Tragedy as well, which I tried out, and it's roundabout kind of the same, but like having different options, because we will be searching Despian monsters, and if you have one Ad Libitum in here, then you can at least search that one as well. If you've already used your Aluber effect, already have that card in hand, or have a different way into it, then you can search one other card that does stuff as well. Plus this card's effect to reset your branded fusion mainly, but you can also reset your branded trap, which is quite nice, is very neat as well in the graveyard, but you usually don't need more than 2 for this one. We have triple Predaplant Byblisp, and this is one of the easier ones to pronounce. This card is kind of the same as Tragedy. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Predaplant monster from your deck to your hand, which is very neat. It's a Predaplant monster, so depends on what you want looking for. It's not great, but you can send this to the graveyard with branded fusion as well, so that's quite nice. And this card also, if your opponent has a monster with the predator counter on it, then you can special summon this card from your graveyard. So all in all, very neat card in general. It generates your advantage in a fusion deck. That's exactly what you need. We have triple Predaplant Chlamydosundew mainly in here because we needed to get the Predamp names up, because we have one card where that comes in handy quite a lot, and that's the Searcher, and you have to have one Predaplant monster in your hand with it, and this one is the card that at least does something on normal summon, and sometimes you can pendulum summon this as well, or special summon it from the deck. Usually I think 2 is okay. You can put in any other card. Let's see how the ratios work. I felt like ratio-wise with the Predaplant monster names, this was the sweet spot for me. Whenever I took one out, I felt like I bricked a bit more on occasion, so I felt like 3 was quite nice, but usually you have quite a lot of normal summons anyway, but there's different ways of getting this one out of your hand as well, and that can be quite a good play starter. Also, it can be removal for your opponent's monsters, because if they have a Predaplant counter on it, or a Predator counter on it, then you can use them as fusion material, so that is something that is quite nice. We have one Ophrys Scorpio. Technically you want to be playing 2, but obviously budget deck, so we're keeping it cheap, and 1 is usually pretty plenty. And like I said, the problem with normal summon exists, so 1 should do, and we can search the, well, obvious card with this one, which is Darlingtonia Cobra, a card that I decided to run out 2 mainly because of the fact that I did get stuck in hand with it a lot. You have one way of putting it back into the deck. Still, though, it didn't feel like I wanted to, because well, the deck relies on this card's effect going off a lot of the time, so having 2 in it isn't too bad, because you can always use the one in hand as a fusion material anyway, and then it doesn't really matter too much. Sadly, this card has to be special summoned by the effect of a Predaplant monster. Otherwise, you could pair it very well with Predapractice, and then you could potentially cut it down to 1, but I feel like 2 is In my opinion, it makes more sense because you can still use it for other reasons, but other than that, it is what it is because you can only use it once per duel, so keep that in mind. This is just in here because I do not like running the garnety cards at 1, because if it's stuck in your hand, then you can't do anything with it. We have Edge Imp Chain in this deck because this card is, well, decent. It's a dark monster, and if it's into the graveyard, then you can search on Frightfur cards, and if you didn't already have this, then you can use it again to search the other one on Poly, and that gives you some more resources. So I feel like at 2 is fine. You can play it at 3, but I felt like I said, you have to cut some of the ratios down if we want to be playing a 40 card deck, which we do in a budget variant, in my opinion. We have Fallen of Albaz in here at 1. Could play it at 2 if you want to, but I feel like 1 is usually fine. You will shuffle it back into the deck anyway with one of your effects, and so on and so on. Yeah, can be problematic sometimes if you only have 1, but I feel like most of the time it would be fine. If you want to play second one, then you could potentially try and cut certain cards while we're talking about that as well. We have double Aluber in here because this card searches stuff. If this card ever gets bumped down to 1, not much of a problem. You can take out anything. Usually you search this card anyway or use it from your deck. That's when maybe a triple Despian Tragedy comes in handy, and then you can still do all of this. It's not too important to have this card too, but obviously you want to be as consistent as possible with the Branded Fusion. Talking about Branded Fusion, we have Springans Kitt in here for 2 different reasons, or technically 3. You can special summon it from your hand in a later grindy stage, so you can always go into like rank 4s before you lock yourself into anything, which you can't do with Branded Fusion because that locks you for the whole turn, but other than that, you could be doing some of that. And also this card can search your Branded Fusion, and it can tuck cards in your hand back into the deck. So technically you could possibly get away with one of this, but since this card isn't really searchable in this deck, you have to then circumvent for what do you do if you draw one of them. You already play one and you didn't draw this, and so on. It's a bit iffy, but you know, obviously adjust the ratios to your liking. Now we have this card in here, a card that I've been running into a few times, and the fact that it's a rare card made me want to build this deck in the first place, because this is what we're trying to turbo out going first. This is the most annoying combo I've run into in ranked for quite a while, because like you read the effect, you cannot summon monsters. No normal summon, no special summon. And you're like, oh, why does that help me? Well, it helps you because you can summon this consistently to your opponent's side of the field in defense position. They have no way of getting rid of it by battle. They have no way of getting rid of it with any monster. They can't tribute summon over this, and so on. So very hard to get rid of for your opponent. And then they just can't summon anything. They cannot summon, which is incredible. And how are we getting it onto our opponent's board? Well, we are doing this with Branded Expulsion, a card that's also very searchable. So there is that. But I'll show a combo video where you can see what I'm talking about. One Ad Libitum just to recycle certain fusion monsters in the later stages of the game, or potentially even one of the Despian monsters. So technically we could go into Aluber. Where we go from there, not really sure, because we usually already use Branded Fusion. There's not that many other branded cards in here that do stuff, but it is what it is. Triple Bufolicula, the fusion one, that is quite nice, and it pairs up very well with Triantis. I usually don't like running 3 Triantis, but I felt like in this deck it actually makes sense because it gains you access to pendulum summoning, which can be very good considering how many cards you have that trigger on summon, not just normal summon, so that's plenty good. And also, if you use these 2 and 1 monster on board, you get an OTK machine that you then can use to finish your opponent after you've given them the monster that they cannot special summon. So very, very, very upsetting. And also this card then this year recycles this one if they both get used for a fusion summon. So this one gets back to your hand, and then you have one more fusion material potentially in your hand as well. So very nice, because with this one you can use your zones, your pendulum zones, pendulum cards for fusion summoning as well, so that's quite nice. Then triple poly, technically ratio wise it's probably better if you run 2 patchwork and 2 poly, but obviously you want to try and keep it as cheap as possible, so triple poly it is, because we do really need it. I tried 2 and it didn't work out perfectly a lot of the time. A third one made it feel a bit better, but you'll still sometimes brick on like either too many polys or not enough ways of fusion summoning, so there is that. So a second patchwork would help with this, plus sometimes that's Ash Blossom bait, so that can be very helpful for especially this specific version as well. We have Predapractice, also a card that can fetch Ash Blossoms and whatnot, so not too bad, and it can get stuff out of your hand. So you can get off a Scorpio out of your hand, you can get the Chlamydosundew out of your hand, and then search 1 Predap card from your deck to your hand, which is also quite nice. But for the rest of this turn, no fusion, only fusion monsters, but who cares? this is what this deck does anyway. Then we have Branded Fusion. Everybody should know this card by now, and you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters the turn you activate this card, so this is keeping that in mind. So these 4 in here become very useless when you want to be using Branded Fusion, or don't use it if you want to be using Branded Fusion, so don't go into these cards because otherwise you can't. Branded Opening, kind of the same, locks you into some fusions, and also this card special summons you Aluber, or technically one of these 2 if you really want them to, and it can trigger certain effects because this cards, and I don't think it's for cost, so that is quite fun here because it triggers certain effects. We have Predaplanning in here, a card that you could cut if you want to. You could play good cards like Branded Banishment, but I feel like this card is very searchable, and in combination with Yugioh Stepelia, it can stop your opponent from using certain effects. It can send Byblisp to the graveyard, then add you one of this one to the hand, so you have that battle trap as well. And then the next turn, if you fusion summon a dark monster while this card's in your graveyard, which you do very, very many times, you can banish this card and then target one card in the field destroyed, so it has all of these things. Then we have Expulsion, a card that's very, very neat because you contribute one fusion monster, target 2 non-fusion monsters that are banished or in your graveyard, so that's quite nice. Even get to recycle banished stuff. Special summon both monsters, 1 on each field, so that's how we get this on our opponent's side of the field. Very hilarious, of course. And if you tribute a fusion monster and mentions Fallen of Albaz, then you can special summon both monsters to your field instead if you would want to, but not that important. So one thing to mention, if this whole combo ever gets banned for some reason, because I think Expulsion has been banned in the TCG, so that might be a route that Master Duel wants to go down as well. The deck still functions, you can just take these 2 cards out, play stuff like before again, Branded Banishment and certain other shenanigans is absolutely fine. It will lose some of its power, but it's still decent enough to craft and to have fun with, so there's that. And also if they ever put Branded Fusion to 1, if they ever put this to 1, still fairly playable. If they put this to 1, it gets a bit harder, but you can still play it, it's just not as good anymore. And if they ban any of the important cards, well then Branded is kind of screwed in the first place, so yeah, let's not talk about that just now. We have the level 5 Predaplant Fusion in here at 1 because this card is very, very nice. It can also summon Darlingtonia Cobra from your deck, so there's that. Even if your Scorpio gets effect veilered or impermed, then you can still do all of that combo as well. And this card adds 2 cards to your hand. Very good play starter as a fusion monster, can easily gain you access to Yugioh Stepelia and so on. We have Chimera Aphasia in here, one of the Ultras that you potentially could cut, but I like the fact that it needs 1 Predaplant monster, 1 dark monster that can come in handy a lot of the time, especially because if you have this card in your hand, you want it in the graveyard because you can send anything with Branded Fusion to the graveyard. Usually you want to send this because you want it in your graveyard, but see, if you drew it, then you can always use this card as a fusion material for either of those cards because they need 1 dark monster, and that is how you get this card out of your hand. So even if you draw into it, it's not really a brick because it's still a dark monster that you can use. We obviously have Predaplant Yugioh Stepelia in here because this card can negate some stuff, spread some Preda counters, and so on. 1 Brigrand just because we have Fallen of Albaz, and this technically can be used then to summon this one and use your opponent's monster for it, so it can come up, but usually it wouldn't. We have double sprint in here because if we ever recycle the Branded Fusion and go into the place again, then yes, we might want to be able to send certain other cards to the graveyard with Mirror Jade, because sometimes Mirror Jade can be coming back. If we ever need to send a second monster besides Albion to the graveyard with Mirror Jade, then this one is the call, because this one can summon Kitt, and then Kitt can recycle Branded Fusion again, theoretically, and so on and so on and so on. So there's all of these plays, and this is possible, the whole recycling, because we have Lubellion, and Lubellion uses materials from your graveyard or your banished zone as well, or from your field, and shuffle them back into the deck. So if this card shuffles itself back into the deck constantly, then you can constantly keep doing this. If this card gets effect veilered, imperm, whatnots, then you're a bit screwed up, because then you have issues because you can't really use Branded Fusion again that much. So there's that. But yeah, I think then usually you don't go into Mirror Jade, and then you technically could go into Mirror Jade again with Branded Fusion. The only problem is that you already have your Fallen of Albaz in your graveyard then, and then you can't do it anymore. So that's when you would want to run to Fallen of Albaz, but it is what it is. Other than that, this is the triple tactics terror that we have to this raid. But you usually want to be running 2 of this, 2 of this, 2 of this, I would say, but let's keep it cheap. 1 of this one, this is the card I was talking about, the OTK machine, because it gains attack equal to the total original attack of all other monsters on the field with the Predator counter, so even on your side of the field. So there's that. I put in one of this one, but this can be cut. You don't really have light monsters. You only have Lubellion and you have your Asophiel as light monsters, but it can come up and it can be a bit hilarious from time to time. One of the level rank 1 monsters, Xyz monsters, because then you can use this card's effect and send it back to the graveyard, because then it doesn't get banished, and you have lots of level 1 monsters in here, plus the Predator counters make your monsters level 1. So theoretically, this could come up. You can play any of the good rank ones anyway. And we have Asophiel in here because you can go into rank 4 from time to time. You have this whole combo with those two. Could work out, but doesn't really happen all that much. We have a Deonator in here just to punish your opponent for placing their monsters in weird zones, and then we can get rid of certain cards that otherwise we don't have good removal for, and Power Core Talker to attack over certain things. Card to mention, obviously, for the extra deck, we have Starving Venom, we have the Alba Lanatus that if you have it, you could run. We have the new one, that the Dusk Dragon that you could put in here potentially. We have Rindbrum that you could put in here potentially, although you can't really do it. Besides, we have a Beast monster, so technically you could fusion it with the whole Springans Kitt, so that works. And we have Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon, theoretically also works, and that is when the whole Albion comes into play. It's a level 8 monster, so you could run it in here. It cycles through your deck, you send to the graveyard, branded opening if you want to, so you have some protection for your fusion monsters, and it can be used as a material for this card's fusion summoning, so that's not too bad, and the attack stats of this are nice, the effects are quite okay, so yes, potentially put it in your extra deck if you want to. We have the whole Blazing Cartesia, a card that you could or should be running in this branded version if you want to. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense with the Predaplant engine, but it is a good card for branded nonetheless. And obviously good link monsters like Nightmare Unicorn to get rid of certain cards. We can be running Predaplanning, can be running Decisive Battle of Golgonda. It stalls a little bit and it can send stuff from your extra deck to the graveyard, so that's a little bit funny. Branded in Red, a card that you probably should be, but it didn't really come up for me. I tried it out and it didn't really work that well in this specific variant, but is a card that can enable crazy combos from time to time, so definitely a card to keep in mind. We have Evenly Matched, we have Branded Banishment, a card that's very, very strong. It can be used as a second trap that you could be running, or instead of Expulsion if this card ever gets banned. And then obviously there are some hand traps that you could be running if you wanted to. Let's move on to the rating section. Alright, let's talk about the power level of this specific list, the strength, how good is this deck, and I would say this is, when it comes to budget decks, a straight up 4 out of 5. You could argue it's even a 5 out of 5, but it's not quite there, it's not quite where certain the best budget decks in the whole format are, and also it has the issue that it is a bit bricky sometimes. Like, usually you get plays off, but sometimes it depends very much on one card going off, and sometimes you just have like a hand that you can't really be doing anything with. Every deck kind of has that, but I feel like fusion decks and tribute decks and whatnot have issues with this a bit more often because they need different pieces, and so I would say a 4 out of 5 is fairly decent, but it borders more to a 5 than to a 3. Like, it's on the good side of things, but what would you have thought? It's branded, so of course it is. Let's talk about the consistency, and there I would say it's a difficult one. I would say it is a very, very low 4 out of 5, but still a 4 out of 5 because you have so many searches in here. You have so many branded searches, you have so many Predaplant searches. You will most likely end up with some good plays, some decent plays at least, and in comparison to lots of other decks, every card kind of searches the other, and there's so much of that. But obviously it's not a 5 out of 5 because you can be stopped easily, and you do have these brick hands from time to time. So I would say like a low 4 out of 5, but nonetheless a 4 out of 5, and nonetheless a 4 out of 5. Let's talk about budget value, and even there I would say a low 4 out of 5 would be 5 out of 5 because it's a very strong deck for the fact that it doesn't cost that much, but I have to deduct 1 point just because of the fact that, well, it isn't the cheapest, is it? We take like 5 ultra rares and 9 super rares. That's not super cheap. You have to keep in mind you basically do get a full Predaplant deck and decent branded core. You obviously, for a full branded deck, you need to craft lots of different things, but you can splash this tiny engine into a few more different fusion decks if you really wanted to, and with certain more additions then it would still be decent, but it obviously is quite expensive, and it's not quite 2 full decks or 2 skeletons or whatever, because the branded package is reasonably small in comparison to what other decks could be doing. So I would say like a solid 4 out of 5. Let's move to the combo tutorial, the replay section. And this time it is a go second replay. I know I wanted to show off the combo, that's going to be the next replay, but this one is a more, well, gameplay focused one. I try to do as well as I potentially can with this deck, but this deck is very complex. You can do so many things wrong, so many combos. There's the Predaplant combos, there's the branded combos. You have to know a lot about these two decks to play it perfectly, and I just don't have the time to learn every deck that too much to perfection. So you shall find out. You probably see some misplays here, but let's first see what is my opponent doing. What can they do? They are playing Labyrinth, and that can be potentially very upsetting if they get into the virus, but they ended up not. But they still have like a very decent setup. They can draw a card, they can use the effects of the Labyrinth, and they have some other shenanigans here that could potentially screw up my whole turn. Let's see what we can do here. I decided to go for, well, different combos first. I want to do this as slow as possible. We draw into this one, so we have more Predaplant cards, and I already fire off my normal summon here because I know I still have Branded opening. So if they negate any of this or get rid of any of this, then potentially I can still go into the package that is very strong, the Branded package. And even then, we're not necessarily quite done yet, because I can send Byblisp to the graveyard, I can send different things to the graveyard with the Branded Fusion, and potentially from that point onwards, there are some things that we could be doing, but let's see how this one works out. We could have obviously started with a different kind of thing, could have discarded Tragedy, seen if the Aluber play works out, and then we could have used the whole Predaplant combo to then still get into the Branded Fusion, because we would still be going into Darlingtonia, the one that's still in our deck. Keep that one in mind. So we would still be fine. So the different ways of playing this completely here. So keep that one in mind. So sent to the graveyard Darlingtonia Cobra, and with this one we can go into the whole combo starter for Predaplants, where you can do a lot of stuff wrong. I thought, let's go into Predapractice here, because with this one I could get into this one on board. With this I can then, if I use it for anything, go into a Preda card from my deck, so that is not too bad either. But yet again, could have also gone to Ophrys Scorpio here, could have searched lots of different things, although we didn't have a normal summon anymore, so we would have had to search some other stuff along the way. But there's plenty of plays to be made. Could have gone into Byblisp here to then send to the graveyard with opening, and so on and so on and so on. There's plenty of stuff that could be done. I decided to go still for the Predaplant combos, still not revealing that I'm actually playing a Branded deck. This is mainly not Predaplant, although most of the cards are Predaplant cards anyway. That's the best of both worlds here. We search another card. With this one, I decided to go for Bufo because I have more fusion opportunities then, and still do not have to go into the whole Branded package here, so we can still do lots of stuff. Plus I still want this card in the graveyard, although I have two options now to do so, either with this card or with this one. And at this point we still have two opportunities to search Branded Fusion here. They still haven't done anything though, so let's see what happens. Now they get rid of this one, so I don't know why, really can't really say why that is. Should have done that beforehand, because now the effect still goes through, but I don't have a fusion monster on board anymore at least, and they can pop whatever I summon. I thought is what they maybe wanted to do, so my board is empty afterwards. Could be decent, but they know I'm going to be searching something with it, so not sure if that was the right call or if they should have already used the punishment once I summoned the card. But lots of people don't really know what Predaplants do, so I'll let that slide. This card now searches as well, so we can even chain block in case they have an Ash Blossom here, although I would kind of rather them using an Ash Blossom here rather than later on, because they can use it on the Branded Fusion, and then you're just a bit screwed because you can't chain block that for anything. So there's that. They obviously trigger the effects of all of these ones, very upsetting, because now they generate lots of resources for themselves. My board is completely cleared, and they still have one set trap here. Keeping that one in mind, they draw two cards. We do search the other combo, so we can potentially go for the OTK machine here, get one Poly out of the deck, because why not? I didn't decide to go for the Branded Fusion because I just thought, maybe they already used their everything they have now to stop stuff, because they didn't before. But I forgot they drew two cards, and that could have been an Ash Blossom here, so might have been smarter to already search Branded Fusion, but then I would have given away that I'm playing Branded, and then they would have just kept the Ash Blossom anyway, so in the end, wouldn't have made that much of a difference, since they didn't Ash Blossom the search of this card anyway. We will see. Sometimes you can play around what they do, sometimes you just can't. In general, send the Tragedy to the graveyard, then we get the Aluber effect off, we chain block it with Tragedy, so this effect at least goes through. We can search, Tragedy searches me Aluber for the next turn, because I felt like that was a bit better, although I could have gone for Ad Libitum if I wanted to. then use the Predaplant engine, because now we have 3 dark monsters on board. Theoretically, that doesn't stay for that long, because they can target 1 card in the field and destroy it, which they go for this one, not the fusion one for some reason. It is what it is. Now we can still fusion summon here, but I cannot use this one, and maybe they thought I don't have any Predaplant monster in my hand anymore that I could use stuff for. I mean, I don't, but we can still do other shenanigans here. They send King Backjack to the graveyard, very, very annoying. They obviously hit the Welcome Labyrinth, and now they have more destruction, is what they would think, but we have Branded Opening, a card that you really have to keep track of, because this card can be very, very devastating if you want playing against the specific deck, because it protects your fusion monsters. So there's that. Now go into Branded Fusion, hope they don't have anything, and from that point onwards I can do the whole Lubellion combo. I knew at least they didn't have a negate, so it would be fine if I use the effect here now, because I should be getting through it. I can discard the card. I did send Byblisp because I already had this card in hand, and we wanted this potentially for the next turn if we even get that far. And now they have Bestials, and they will find out the hard way that it doesn't really matter if they have Bestials at all, because this card also uses the Banished Zone for the fusion material, so it doesn't really matter if I already used them now or targeted them now, because they can be banished or in my graveyard. Doesn't make any difference to me here. And this is the living proof. Shuffle them back to the deck, and what do we go into? Of course, we go into Mirror Jade here, not Lubellion. I always want to call it Lubellion. The Mirror Jade, and now we have Triantis again, because it's searched with Byblisp, so we can do this whole fusion combo again, and that's the one that I really, really like, because we can use all of these cards on board to go into the very big one, the one that doesn't only get attack points, it also has, when your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, while you control this fusion summon card, you can negate the summon and destroy that monster, so that's quite nice as well to keep in mind. Not that that comes up against them, because they have Dogmatica Punishment anyway, but I thought this card could potentially finish me the game, and you will see why that is, because now we activate Triantis, off also Bufo, because Bufo gets me a card back to my hand, which is nice, and that can be very helpful, and you'll see why that is in a second as well. So now we can spread some counters, boost the attack points of this card, get this card back, and we fusion summon again using these two. With these two, we can go into, can we go into? Obviously, Chlamydosundew, and this card can get rid of another card on your opponent's board. They use Magnemite here, I don't know why. It doesn't really matter that much, but I can spread some more Preda counters, because this card isn't hard once per turn. You can use it multiple times in the same turn, so we gain a massive attack boost here, 15,000, it's insane. And now they think, well, kind of want to get rid of this one, don't we? So summon this one, and they realize, oops, not quite getting rid of that one with that effect, so there is that. Oops is my answer to this one. And now they have one monster in attack position that they cannot get rid of, because they've used all of the effects. I still have the Mirror Jade effect, and I still have the Chlamydosundew effect, but right now I do not really want to get rid of anything. I just want to attack for game, and that is exactly what I'm doing. So you can see, even going second, even if your opponent has some disruptions, there's still a lot to be done, but obviously the deck doesn't run any hand traps, so going second isn't the best, but you can work around it against certain decks. Certain combo decks will screw you up, of course, but certain other decks might be absolutely fine to deal with. Let's move to the actual combo tutorial that I was talking about. It's not much of a combo, but you will see what I'm talking about. And here we are going first. A lot of people, I just want to say this, have surrendered once they saw what I was trying to go for usually. So it's not that easy to find. Go first, replays where you actually get the whole combo off and your opponent interacts with it in a way. So this is the shout outs to that one, because yeah, they let me do all of my stuff. Let's skip through it. This point is not that amazing. What we're trying to do here is get the branded fusion out, and once we have the branded fusion, we can be doing all kinds of shenanigans. Here you can see you can do plenty of stuff. Search branded fusion already here with the Darlingtonia. Don't even want to go into the whole shenanigans with the fusion monster. We can do that all now. We can go into so many different combos, search so many different cards. For next turn, for this turn, go into so many different fusion setups. We've all seen this one before. I probably have made some mistakes in the combos up to now, but we don't really care, because we're in here for the branded fusion. And so what we're doing now is activate branded fusion, send to the graveyard Ido, and send to the graveyard Fallen of Albaz to go into Lubellion, of course. Then with the Lubellion, we discard one card, shuffle this back, and go into Mirror Jade. Very important. And then, well, you kind of want to have another monster on your side of the field, which we can be doing because we can Pendulum Summon. Ooh, and from that point onwards, there's multiple combos we can do. We can now fuse these three, so we have one card in hand still, and go into the big one. And now what is important is, because you want to use Mirror Jade's effect to get the card into the grave that you still have in your extra deck, Albion, the Branded Dragon, of course, because this one searches you your trap cards, and that's one of the important ones, because if you don't have the trap cards, a bit annoying. I think you have different ways of searching it, but this is usually the best one, and usually always works, especially with the Predaplant variant, because you usually have one other monster on board anyway, because you don't just activate Branded Fusion, so we can easily get rid of the Edge Imp Chain. We can use the Mirror Jade effect then to banish stuff during the opponent's turn, but it doesn't really matter if they can't summon any monsters anyway. Now we get another search in here, we get to spread some counters, so our monster has some crazy attack, we get to get our Triantis back to our hand as usual, and then we do what I've been talking about and getting rid of one of our Edge Imp monster, well, the Edge Imp monster on our board, and search the trap card in the end step, because in phase we can use this, search Expulsion from the deck, set it as well, and then during the opponent's draw phase, you can already do this, but technically wait, but there's not much point of waiting. I send to the graveyard this one, because this one can actually special summon itself back if your opponent controls a monster with the Predator counter, and it doesn't do that much during the opponent's turn. I felt like a monster negate was possibly better than having this one on board, but it is what it is. Technically, you could have also sent Mirror Jade, but I wanted to, if they for some reason broke the lock, they still had to get rid of Mirror Jade, and then I still would have gotten rid of their board in the end phase, and then could have, during my turn, done something else at least. So I thought this was the plan here, but obviously you could have tributed any of these fusion monsters. And now what we do is summon this card in defense position to the opponent's side of the field, and summon this one on our side of the field, because if this card is attacked, then the opponent's monster also gets destroyed, but they can't even attack with this one. They can't change the battle stance of this card one. They can't do anything with it, and now they cannot summon monsters. Turns out they didn't really need to, because they're playing some bad reaction to Simochi kind of nonsense, but they cannot they cannot summon the nurse either, so they have to specifically hit Simochi, otherwise all of their cards in the deck are absolutely worthless, and they didn't get Simochi because they didn't do anything else. And from this point onwards we can try and OTK here, which isn't too bad. Usually it's not too hard. We can banish this card now, and now we have enough damage on board already to end this specific game. So this would be the lock. Not many decks can do all that much about it. You would need some kind of spell cards that does stuff, or some monster effect in your hand that get rid of it. It's more the build up where they usually get you, not if you've already established it. But let's see how long this kind of stuff lasts before Konami does something about it. I've not seen it a lot, but I have seen it a few times, so don't know if this is healthy for the game or not. Don't know how easy it is to set up. I, out of 10 games, didn't get into it that much, so I feel like maybe it's fine. We will find out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, but most importantly, I hope you have a nice day.